The lights flickered in the main corridor of the horizon as Alan Carter made his way to the bridge. The ship groaned and shuddered, showing its age with every light year they traveled. Alan had been chief engineer on this vessel for only 3 months, but he knew every loose panel and failing system like the back of his hand. The Horizon was never meant for this. Built as a science vessel, it had been hastily converted to transport refugees when the Kryvan Empire attacked the outer colonies. Now it carried the last 300 survivors from Outpost Delta, all that remained of what had once been a thriving research community. Alan nodded to 2 children playing in the hallway. They had drawn a hopeful picture of Earth on the wall. He didn't have the heart to tell them that reports suggested Earth might already be under siege. Their parents probably knew but kept silent to protect what little childhood remained for them. When Alan reached the bridge, he found Captain Lisa Morgan bent over the navigation console with Frank Nelson. Her face was tight with worry, the lines around her eyes deeper than they had been a week ago. "How bad is it?" Alan asked. Lisa looked up. "Bad. Show him, Frank." The navigator pulled up a long-range scan on the main screen. A large red dot moved steadily across the star map, following the same course as the Horizon. "Kryvan battlecruiser," Frank said. "Been tracking us for 3 days. We changed course twice, but they adjusted each time. They know exactly where we are." Diane Bell turned from her communication station. "And they're gaining. At current speeds, they'll be in weapons range in 5 days. Alan ran a hand through his short brown hair. "Can we go faster?" "The engines are at maximum already," Lisa said. "You told me yourself last week, push them any harder and we risk a core breach." The 4 of them stood in silence, the weight of responsibility for 300 lives pressing down on them. Alan had seen that look before, back on Delta, when the colony governor realized they couldn't hold against the Kryvan forces. It was the look of someone who had run out of options. "We have to try something else," Alan said finally. "We can't outrun them, and we can't surrender." Everyone on the bridge knew what surrender meant. The Kryvan didn't take prisoners. They took test subjects. The lucky ones died quickly. "What do you suggest?" Lisa asked. "The Horizon is a science vessel. We have minimal shields and no weapons. That cruiser out there is designed to destroy military ships 3 times our size." Alan walked to the viewport and stared out at the stars. Among the survivors were some of the best scientific minds in the outer colonies. People who had spent their lives solving impossible problems and pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. "What if," he said slowly, "we turn the Horizon into something the Kryvan aren't expecting?" "What do you mean?" Frank asked. Alan turned back to face them. "I mean we transform this ship. We have laboratories full of equipment that could be repurposed. High-energy laser drills from the geology lab. Particle accelerators from the physics section. The atmospheric sampling array has electromagnetic pulse generators that could be modified. You want to turn a science vessel into a warship?" Diane looked skeptical. "In 5 days? Not a traditional warship," Alan said, warming to his idea. "Something new. The Kryvan expect us to run or surrender. They won't expect a science vessel to fight back. We could use that surprise." Lisa studied his face. "Even if we could modify the ship, we have no combat training, no tactical experience." "I do," Alan said quietly. The others looked at him in surprise. "Before I was an engineer on research stations, I served in the Earth Defense Force. 6 years on the front lines against the Mindari pirates." "You never mentioned that," Lisa said. "It's not something I like to remember," Alan replied. "But I know ships, I know weapons, and I know how to fight when outgunned." Lisa walked to the center of the bridge, her decision already forming. "How many people would you need?" "At least 20 with engineering or technical backgrounds, access to all laboratories and storage, and permission to tear apart anything non-essential." Lisa was silent for a long moment. As captain, the final decision rested with her. If Alan was wrong, she would be sacrificing their comfort and possibly their safety on a desperate gamble. "The alternative is to keep running until they catch us," she said finally. "I won't let these people be taken without a fight." She straightened her shoulders. "Do it, whatever you need. But Alan, no promises you can't keep. I need to know exactly what we can expect from these modifications. Alan nodded. I'll have a full plan to you by morning. And Captain, thank you for the chance. Don't thank me yet, Lisa said grimly. I'll address the passengers. They need to know what we're facing. Alan left the bridge with a new sense of purpose. As he walked back through the corridors, he mentally inventoried every piece of equipment on board, seeing each not for what it was, but for what it could become. In the main hold, he found Sam Wright, a physicist from Delta's energy research team. Sam, I need your help, Alan said. How much do you know about weapon systems? Sam looked surprised. Nothing. I studied clean energy production. How about energy transfer? Power routing? Focusing mechanisms? Well, that's different. Those are my specialties, Alan smiled. Perfect. I need you to gather anyone with similar skills. Meet me in Cargo Bay 3 in an hour. Later, as the group of scientists and engineers assembled, Alan stood before them. The Kriven think we're helpless, he began. We're going to show them how wrong they are. Starting now, we're not refugees anymore. We're not running. We're going to transform the horizon into something they've never seen before. He pointed to the ship schematics he had displayed. We have 5 days to turn this science vessel into a machine that can fight back. It won't be pretty. It won't be perfect. But if we work together, it might just save our lives. As Alan looked at the determined faces around him, he felt a spark of hope for the first time since Outpost Delta fell. They were outnumbered and outgunned, facing an enemy that had destroyed entire colonies. But humans had one advantage the Kriven always underestimated: the ability to adapt. The transformation of the horizon was about to begin. Cargo Bay 3 had become the center of operations for what the crew now called Project Transformation. Alan stood amid organized chaos as equipment from all over the ship was brought in, examined, and sorted. The massive room buzzed with activity as scientists and engineers worked with newfound purpose. We have 4 days and 18 hours until the Kriven ship is in weapons range, Alan announced to the team leaders gathered around a makeshift planning table. He had divided the workers into specialized groups, each focused on a different aspect of the ship's transformation. Sam, how's the power redistribution coming along? Alan asked. Sam Wright pointed to a complex diagram on his tablet. We've identified ways to reroute power from non-essential systems. Life support will remain at full capacity, but we're cutting climate control in unused sections and reducing lighting to emergency levels throughout the ship. Good. That gives us about 30% more power to work with. Alan turned to Karen Lewis, a geologist who had worked with high-energy equipment on Delta. What about the laser drills? Karen pushed her glasses up her nose. We have 6 industrial-grade laser drills from the geology lab. My team is modifying them to work as directional weapons. The challenge is mounting them on the hull without compromising the ship's integrity. I might have a solution for that, said Ben Cooper, a structural engineer. There are external sensor pods distributed around the ship. They were designed to be detachable for maintenance. If we remove the internal components, we could use the pods to house the weapons. Alan nodded approvingly. That's the kind of thinking we need. Get with Karen's team and make it happen. The next problem was targeting. The Horizon had no combat targeting systems. Civilian vessels didn't need them, but Diane Bell had proposed a solution. We can repurpose the long-range scanners, she explained. They're designed to take precise measurements of stellar bodies. With some recalibration, they should be able to lock onto a ship and track its movement. What about defense? Alan asked the group. We need something to counter their weapons. Paul Martinez, who had previously worked on radiation shielding technologies, spoke up. The Horizon has advanced radiation shields for scientific missions near unstable stars. We're modifying them to create a deflection barrier. It won't stop a direct hit from heavy weapons, but it might reduce damage from glancing blows. As the meeting continued, Captain Lisa entered the cargo bay. She looked tired but determined as she made her way through the organized mess of equipment and cables. How's it coming? She asked Alan when the meeting dispersed. Better than I expected, he replied. These people are incredibly resourceful. It's amazing what they can do when given the chance. Lisa gazed around at the activity. The passengers are scared. I've told them what we're doing. but many don't believe we have a chance. They might be right, Alan admitted. But we have something. The Kriven don't expect creativity. They rely on brute force and intimidation. We're building something they've never encountered before. Lisa placed a hand on his arm. I need to know our real chances, Alan, not what you tell the others to keep their spirits up. Alan led her to a quiet corner. Honestly, if the Kriven ship was at full battle readiness, we'd be in trouble. But our long-range scans show minor fluctuations in their power signature. They might have damage from a previous engagement. That gives us a slim chance, if we can surprise them. Before Lisa could respond, there was a commotion from across the bay. A young woman pushed her way through the workers, clutching a small container. Dr. Ellis, what's going on? Lisa asked as the woman approached. Captain, Engineer Carter, you need to see this, Dr. Ellis said breathlessly. She opened the container to reveal several glowing blue crystals. These were in the geology lab's specimen storage. They're from our last research expedition to the Cygnus asteroid belt. Alan carefully picked up one of the crystals. It felt warm to the touch, and the blue glow seemed to pulse slightly. What are they? He asked. We called them energy amplifiers, Dr. Ellis explained. They have unique properties. When subjected to an energy current, they don't just conduct it, they amplify it. We were studying them for potential clean energy applications. Alan and Lisa exchanged looks. How much amplification are we talking about? Alan asked. In controlled tests, up to 300% increase without additional power input. But we never tested them at high energy levels. It was too dangerous in a lab setting. Alan's mind raced with possibilities. If we integrated these into our weapon systems, we could triple their effectiveness, Sam Wright finished, having joined the conversation. But the crystals are unstable at high energy levels. We don't know if they'll hold together. It's a risk we have to take, Alan decided. Sam, work with Dr. Ellis to incorporate these crystals into our power grid. Start with small applications, then scale up carefully. As the scientists left with the crystals, Lisa turned to Alan. Those could make the difference, or they could blow us to pieces if they become unstable, Alan cautioned. But you're right, they might be our best chance. Over the next 2 days, the transformation progressed rapidly. The exterior of the horizon began to change as sensor pods were converted to weapon housings, and makeshift armor plating was attached to vulnerable areas. Inside, the ship's systems were rewired and reprogrammed for their new purpose. On the 3rd day, they had a setback. During a test of the first modified laser drill, a power surge damaged the targeting system. Hours of careful work were lost, and precious time was spent on repairs. We're cutting it too close, Alan told Lisa during their daily briefing. The Kriven ship will be in range in less than 36 hours, and we're not ready. What do we need? Lisa asked. Time. Another day at least. Lisa considered this. What if we could buy that time? Frank has been studying the movement patterns of the Kriven ship. He thinks there's a debris field ahead that we could use to mask our signature temporarily. It's risky, Alan warned. If they detect us trying to hide, they might increase speed. It's a chance we have to take, Lisa decided. I'll work with Frank to plot the course. The maneuver worked better than they hoped. The horizon slipped into the debris field, and the Kriven ship slowed its approach, scanning cautiously for traps. It gave the crew an additional 18 hours. They worked around the clock, pushing themselves to the limit. The energy crystals were successfully integrated into the power grid, though on a smaller scale than originally planned due to stability concerns. By the time the Kriven ship cleared the debris field and resumed its pursuit, the horizon had changed dramatically. Its once smooth hull now bristled with repurposed equipment. Inside, the ship hummed with new energy as systems came online. All stations report ready, Diane announced from her console on the bridge. Alan looked at the transformed ship schematics on his screen. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't conventional, but it was the best chance they had. Captain, he said to Lisa, the horizon is ready. The bridge of the horizon was silent except for the soft beeping of instruments. Everyone was at their station, waiting. The main screen showed the approaching Kryvan battlecruiser, its sleek hull gleaming against the backdrop of stars. It was 5 times the size of the Horizon, designed for war. "They're hailing us," Diane reported from the communications console. Lisa nodded. "Put it through." The screen changed to show a tall, gray-skinned figure. The Kryvan commander had ridged features and cold yellow eyes. He looked at the humans with open disdain. "This is Commander Vex of the Imperial ship Dominance," he said in slightly accented English. "Your vessel has been identified as carrying fugitives from Imperial justice. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded." Lisa stood straight, showing no fear. "This is Captain Lisa Morgan of the civilian ship Horizon. We are refugees, not criminals. We request safe passage." The Kryvan's mouth twisted in what might have been a smile. "There is no such thing as a civilian in wartime. You harbored scientists who refused to serve the Empire. The penalty is clear." "We will not surrender," Lisa said firmly. "Then you will be destroyed." The communication ended abruptly. "They're powering up weapons," Frank reported. 30 seconds to weapons range." Alan moved to stand beside Lisa. "Remember, the plan. Let them get close. Make them think we're helpless." Lisa nodded, though her knuckles were white where she gripped the back of her chair. "All stations prepare for engagement. Refugees to the central chambers as practiced." Throughout the ship, people moved quickly to predetermined positions. Unlike a military vessel, the Horizon carried civilians, men, women, and children who had already lost their homes once. Now they huddled in the reinforced central sections of the ship, protected by the outer layers. 20 seconds. Frank counted down. "Power levels steady," Sam reported from engineering. "Crystal integration holding at 80% efficiency." 10 seconds. Alan watched the tactical display. Everything depended on timing. "They're in range," Frank announced. "They're targeting our engines." "Evasive maneuvers," Lisa ordered. "Pattern Delta." The Horizon lurched as it began a series of pre-programmed movements designed to make targeting more difficult. It wouldn't fool the Kryvan for long, but it might buy precious seconds. "First volley incoming," Frank warned. The ship shuddered as energy blasts struck the hastily reinforced shields. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. "Shields holding at 60%, Paul reported from the defense station. "Better than expected, but they won't survive another direct hit like that." "Now," Lisa commanded. Alan activated the weapons system. The modified laser drills housed in the external sensor pods powered up. Energy from the ship's core, amplified by the blue crystals, flowed into the makeshift weapons. "Target their forward." "Weapons array," Alan instructed the targeting team. On the main screen they watched as beams of intense blue energy shot from the Horizon toward the much larger Kryvan ship. The enemy's shields flickered where the beams hit. "Minor damage to their shields," Frank reported. "They weren't expecting that." "Full power to the electromagnetic pulse generator," Alan ordered. The atmospheric sampling array, repurposed into an EMP weapon, began to charge. It was their most power-hungry system, requiring almost all the energy the crystals could provide. "EMP charge to maximum," Sam confirmed from engineering. "But we'll only get one shot before we need to recharge." "Wait for my mark," Lisa said, watching the enemy ship's movements carefully. "They're repositioning for another attack. When they open their weapons ports..." The Kryvan ship turned, bringing its main guns to bear on the Horizon. For a moment, the ports opened as the weapons prepared to fire. "Now!" Lisa shouted. The EMP fired, a wave of invisible energy that washed over the Kryvan ship, just as its weapon systems were most vulnerable. On the screen, they saw the enemy ship's lights. "Flicker, direct hit," Frank exclaimed. "Their forward weapons array is offline. Power fluctuations throughout their ship." A cheer went up from the bridge crew, but Alan quieted them quickly. "Don't celebrate yet. We've only disabled part of their weapons. They still outgun us." The Kryvan ship began to turn, bringing its secondary weapons to bear. But the temporary confusion gave the Horizon an opportunity. "Close the distance," Lisa ordered. "Target their shield generators." The horizon surged forward, closing the gap between the ships. At close range, they're modified. Laser drills might be able to penetrate the enemy's shields. Firing all weapons, Alan confirmed. The laser drills fired again, this time concentrating on a single section of the Kryvan ship's hull. The blue energy beams, amplified by the crystals, struck with unexpected force. On the tactical display, a section of the enemy's shields collapsed. "We've breached their shields in Section 4, Frank reported. Direct hit on their hull. But the advantage was short-lived. The Kryvan ship responded with its secondary weapons, and the horizon rocked under the assault. "Shields failing," Paul shouted over the noise of alarms. "Hull breach. On Deck 3. Emergency bulkheads activated." Lisa gripped her chair as the ship shuddered around them. "Damage report. We've lost 2 of the laser mounts," Alan said grimly. "Power fluctuations throughout the ship. The crystal integration is becoming unstable." On the main screen, they could see the Kryvan ship turning again, repositioning for what could be a killing blow. "We can't take another hit like that," Frankie warned. Alan studied the tactical display, looking for any advantage. "Their damage is concentrated on their port side. If we can get behind them—" "Navigation is damaged," Frank replied. "We don't have the maneuverability." "Engineering to bridge," Sam's voice came over the comm system. "The crystals are becoming unstable under current power loads. We need to reduce output or risk a cascade failure." Lisa looked to Alan. The unspoken question hung in the air. Was this the end of their fight? Alan refused to accept defeat. "Sam, what if we did the opposite? What if we increased the crystal energy input instead of reducing it?" "That would almost certainly cause them to overload," Sam replied. "Could we direct that overload? Turn it into a weapon?" There was a pause as Sam considered. "Maybe. If we channeled the energy through the remaining laser mounts, we might create a concentrated energy burst. But Alan, that would burn out our weapons completely. We'd have nothing left. And if it doesn't work, the feedback could damage our own systems beyond repair," Paul added. Alan met Lisa's eyes. "It's your call, Captain." Lisa surveyed her bridge. The damage was extensive, with panels sparking and emergency lighting casting, harsh shadows across tired faces. Through the viewport, she could see the massive Kryvan ship preparing for what would likely be its final attack. "Do it," she ordered. "Channel everything we have into one final strike. All power to the remaining laser mounts." Alan relayed the order. "Divert life support if necessary. We only need a few minutes." Throughout the ship, the refugees huddled together as the lights dimmed further. The air grew still as life support. Systems were temporarily reduced to minimum levels. Every bit of power was being diverted to the weapons. "Crystal energy integration at 120% of rated capacity," Sam reported, his voice tense. 130, 140. They're becoming highly unstable. "Target their engines," Lisa commanded. "If we can't destroy them, maybe we can cripple them." The horizon turned slightly, bringing its remaining weapons to bear on the enemy ship's engine section. The laser mounts glowed with unnatural blue light as the crystal energy built to dangerous levels. "Energy at maximum capacity," Sam warned. "Crystal structures beginning to break down. It's now or never." "Fire!" Lisa ordered. From the remaining weapon mounts, beams of blinding blue-white energy lanced out toward the Kryvan ship. The beams were unlike anything they had generated before. Pure energy, amplified beyond safe limits by the dying crystals. Where the beams struck the enemy ship, the shields didn't just fail, they shattered. The energy continued through, cutting into the Kryvan vessel's hull like a knife. Secondary explosions bloomed along the enemy ship's port side. "Direct hit on their engine section," Frank shouted over the alarms now blaring throughout the horizon. "They're losing power." "Weapons offline," Alan reported as the laser mounts burned out completely. "Crystal integration has failed. We've got nothing left." Everyone on the bridge watched the main screen, where the Kryvan ship drifted, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from multiple breaches. Its lights flickered and went dark. "Did we do it?" Diane asked, breaking the silence. "Scanning," Frank replied, bent over his console. "They've lost main power. Engines are offline. Life support appears to be functioning on emergency systems. He looked up with a smile. They're crippled. A cheer erupted on the bridge, quickly followed by exhausted laughter and tears of relief. Lisa sank into her chair, the tension of battle draining from her body. Engineering to bridge, Sam's voice came through. We've managed to stabilize the power grid, but the crystals are completely burned out. Weapon systems are beyond repair. With our current resources, Alan nodded, not surprised. What about engines, life support? Engines are functional, though at reduced efficiency. Life support is coming back online now. We lost a lot of systems, Alan, but the ship held together. Lisa activated the ship-wide communication system. This is the captain. The Kryven ship has been disabled. We are safe for now. 6 hours after the battle, the Horizon drifted in space, maintaining a safe distance from the crippled Kryven vessel. Emergency repairs were underway throughout the ship. The medical bay was filled with injured crew members, though thankfully, there had been no deaths. Alan stood with Lisa and a small team in the conference room, studying the scans of the damaged enemy ship. Their main power is still offline, Frank reported, pointing to the display. They're running on emergency systems only. Life support is functioning, but little else. What about communications? Lisa asked. Could they have called for help? Diane shook her head. Their long-range communication array was destroyed in the battle. They might have sent a distress signal before we disabled them, but I doubt it. Kryven commanders don't admit defeat easily. Alan studied the detailed scans. Their ship is damaged but not destroyed. The main structure is intact. Most importantly, their engine core and navigation systems appear undamaged, just offline. What are you thinking? Lisa asked, recognizing the look in his eyes. I'm thinking we need more than repairs, Alan replied. The Horizon held together, but we lost our weapons. The crystal integration is completely burned out. If we encounter another Kryven ship, we'll have no defense. So we run, suggested Paul. Find a place to hide, make proper repairs. Alan shook his head. The Kryven are expanding their territory. There's nowhere in this sector that will be safe for long. He pointed to the enemy ship on the screen. But that vessel has everything we need. Advanced weapons, shields, faster engines. Military-grade systems that would take us years to develop on our own. You want to salvage parts from their ship? Sam asked. No, Alan said firmly. I want to take their ship. The room fell silent. Lisa stared at him. You can't be serious. We're not pirates, Alan. No, we're survivors, he countered. That ship is dead in space. From our scans, at least half the crew is either dead or incapacitated. They would do worse to us without hesitation. Even if it were possible, Frank argued, none of us know how to operate Kryven technology. Their systems are completely different from ours. Not completely, Alan said. We've been studying their tech for years. The scientific community has extensive data on salvaged Kryven equipment. Sam, didn't your team on Delta study Kryven power systems? Sam nodded reluctantly. Yes, but only components, never an entire ship. Dr. Ellis worked with their navigation systems, Alan continued. And I had combat training on similar alien tech during my military service. Between us, we have the knowledge. What we lack is the opportunity, which is right in front of us. Lisa paced the small conference room. How would this even work? We can't just knock on their airlock and ask them to surrender. I'm proposing a boarding party, Alan explained. A small team enters their ship, secures the bridge and engineering sections, and takes control. We then transfer our people over in stages. And what about the Kryven crew? Diane asked quietly. Alan met her eyes. We offer them surrender, the same terms they offered us. The room was silent again as everyone considered the implications. They were not soldiers. Most had never even held a weapon before the attack on the colonies. There's another option, Lisa said at last. We take what we need from their ship, supplies, parts to repair our weapons, maybe some technology we can adapt, and then we leave. No boarding, no taking over their ship. Alan shook his head. That's short-term thinking. The Horizon was never built for war. No matter how we modify it, it will never match a proper military vessel. The Kryvan ship is faster, stronger, and better armed. With it, we'd have a real chance. A chance at what? Lisa asked sharply. Revenge? Becoming pirates ourselves? A chance at helping others, Alan replied. We're not the only refugees out there. Other colonies are being attacked. With that ship, we could make a difference. The debate continued for another hour. In the end, they reached a compromise. A team would board the Kryvan vessel to gather intelligence and salvage critical technology. Only if the situation allowed would they consider taking the ship. Preparations began immediately. The Horizon had no proper military equipment, so they improvised. Maintenance tools became weapons. Portable scanners were reprogrammed to detect life signs. Emergency spacesuits were modified for better mobility. Alan selected his team carefully. Sam for his knowledge of Kryvan power systems, Dr. Ellis for navigation, Paul for defensive systems, and 4 others with technical skills or physical strength. Lisa insisted on joining them. I'm still the captain, she said when Alan objected. I won't send my people into danger without being there myself. 24 hours after the battle, they were ready. The 2 ships drifted close to each other, connected by a temporary docking tube constructed from emergency materials. The boarding party gathered in the airlock, checking their makeshift equipment one last time. Remember the plan, Alan told the team. We move quietly. Our priority is the engine room and bridge. We avoid confrontation when possible. The Kryvan are physically stronger than we are, so we use surprise and numbers to our advantage. Lisa addressed the team. This is a salvage mission first and foremost. We take what we need, then we leave. Only if there's a clear opportunity do we consider the alternative. The airlock cycled open, and they entered the docking tube. The short journey to the Kryvan ship felt endless. At the far end, they had to manually override the enemy airlock, a tense process that took Sam nearly 15 minutes to complete. Finally, the door slid open, revealing a darkened corridor lit only by red emergency lighting. The air was breathable, but had a strange, metallic smell. Alan led the way, scanner in one hand, improvised weapon in the other. The corridors of the Kryvan ship were larger than those of the Horizon, designed for the taller alien species. The architecture was angular and utilitarian, with none of the warmth of human design. They moved carefully, following the ship's schematics they had pieced together from scans. They encountered their first Kryvan crew member 10 minutes in. An injured officer slumped against a wall. The alien looked up as they approached, yellow eyes widening in surprise. Before it could call for help, Paul stepped forward and pressed a sedative patch to its neck. The Kryvan slumped unconscious. Drag it into that compartment, Alan whispered. Secure its hands and feet. As they progressed deeper into the ship, they found more evidence of the damage they had caused. Sections of corridor were sealed off due to hull breaches. Damaged systems sparked behind broken panels. Most of the Kryvan they encountered were already dead or seriously injured. Their medical technology must be offline, Dr. Ellis observed quietly. Or they'd have treated these wounded. They reached a junction where the corridor split. According to their plan, they needed to separate, one team to the engine room, one to the bridge. I'll take Sam and Paul to engineering, Alan said. Lisa, you take Dr. Ellis and the others to the bridge. Stay in radio contact. Lisa nodded. Be careful. We meet back here in 30 minutes regardless of what we find. The team split up. Alan's group moved downward through the ship, following the main power conduits that Sam identified. The emergency lighting grew dimmer as they descended, making the shadows seem to move around them. The engine room was enormous, at least 3 times the size of the Horizon's engine section. Massive power cores lay dormant, surrounded by control stations and monitoring equipment. Only one Kryvan engineer was present, working frantically at a console. They subdued him quickly. Look at this, Sam said with awe as he examined the main control panel. Their power system is incredible. The output capacity is at least 10 times what the Horizon can generate. Can you get it running? Alan asked. Sam studied the controls. I think so. The system is damaged but not destroyed. The Kryven was in the process of bypassing the damaged sections. He pointed to some partially completed work. With a few hours, I could probably get at least partial power restored. Meanwhile, Lisa's team had reached the bridge. Unlike human ship designs, the Kryven bridge was deep within the vessel, protected by layers of hull. It had taken them longer to reach it, navigating through unfamiliar corridors. The bridge doors were sealed, but Dr. Ellis managed to bypass the security protocols. The doors slid open to reveal a scene of destruction. The battle had taken its toll here. Several control stations were destroyed, and bodies of Kryven officers lay where they had fallen. One figure still moved, the commander they had seen during the communication. Commander Vex sat in his central chair, breathing laboriously, a large wound visible on his side. He looked up as the humans entered, his expression a mixture of pain and rage. So, he rasped in English, the prey comes to the predator. Lisa stepped forward, improvised weapon ready. Your ship is disabled. Your crew is incapacitated. Surrender, and we'll treat your wounded. The Kryven commander laughed, a harsh sound that ended in a cough. Humans, always believing you can negotiate with your betters. He reached slowly for a panel on his chair. Dr. Ellis noticed the movement. Stop him. That's an emergency control panel. Paul lunged forward, but too late. Vex pressed a sequence of controls and alarms began to sound throughout the ship. What did you do? Lisa demanded. Vex smiled, showing sharp teeth. Self-destruct, the final protocol of any Imperial commander. This ship will not fall into enemy hands. The radio crackled with Alan's voice. 15 minutes until self-destruct. The automated announcement echoed through the corridors of the Kryven ship in both alien language and translated English. Red warning lights flashed, creating eerie shadows as the boarding team raced through. The ship. Everyone back to the docking tube now, Lisa ordered over the radio. Her team was already moving, leaving the dying Commander Vex on his bridge. There was no time for prisoners. Alan's voice crackled in response. Wait, we might be able to stop this. That's an order, Alan. Get your team out. Listen to me, Alan insisted. Sam thinks he can disable the self-destruct from the engine room. We need 5 minutes. Lisa hesitated, torn between safety and opportunity. 5 minutes was a fifth of their remaining time. If Alan failed, none of them might make it back to the Horizon. You have 3 minutes, she decided. Then you head back regardless. In the engine room, Sam worked frantically at the main control panel. The Kryven systems were familiar enough in basic principles, but the specific commands were alien to him. Can you do it? Alan asked, watching the time tick away on his makeshift scanner. Maybe, Sam replied, not looking up. The self-destruct sequence is routing power from the auxiliary systems to overload the main reactor. If I can interrupt that power flow, his fingers moved across the alien controls, attempting to redirect the energy. Paul stood guard at the engine room entrance, makeshift weapon ready. We have company, he warned as footsteps approached. Sounds like multiple Kryven. Buy us some time, Alan said, moving to help defend the entrance. 3 Kryven crew members appeared at the end of the corridor, makeshift weapons of their own in hand. They were injured but determined, limping toward the engine room with clear purpose. They know what we're trying to do, Paul realized. The confrontation was brief but violent. The Kryven were stronger, but Alan and Paul had the advantage of position, using the doorway as a bottleneck. When it was over, the aliens lay unconscious, and Paul had a deep gash on his arm. 2 minutes left, Alan called to Sam, applying a pressure bandage to Paul's wound. I almost have it, Sam responded, sweat beading on his forehead. Their system architecture is similar to what we studied, but the command protocols are different. Meanwhile, Lisa's team had reached the docking tube connection point. Dr. Ellis looked anxiously at her portable scanner. We're running out of time, she said. Where are they? Lisa checked her radio. Alan, report. We're at the extraction point. 1 more minute, Alan's voice replied, the connection breaking up with interference. Sam's almost... The transmission cut off. 10 minutes until self-destruct, the automated voice announced. Lisa made a decision. Dr. Ellis, take the others back to the horizon. Begin emergency undocking procedures. What about you? Dr. Ellis asked. I'm going after them. Have Diane prepare the horizon for immediate departure. If we're not back before the 5-minute mark, leave without us. Back in the engine room, Sam shouted in triumph. I've got it. Not a full shutdown, but I've managed to redirect the power flow. Instead of destroying the whole ship, the overload will be limited to non-essential sections. Will it work? Alan asked. 80% chance, Sam said. The bridge will be destroyed, along with the outer hull sections, but the engine room and central corridor should survive. That's good enough, let's move. The 3 men ran through the corridors, following the path back to the docking point. They encountered Lisa halfway there. I redirected the self-destruct, Sam explained breathlessly. The whole ship won't blow, but we need to get to the central sections quickly. Together they raced toward the center of the Kryvan vessel. The automated countdown continued relentlessly. 5 minutes until self-destruct. They reached the central corridor just as the first explosions began to rock the outer sections of the ship. The docking tube shuddered and then tore away. The connection to the horizon severed. We're cut off, Paul shouted, staring at the empty airlock where the tube had been. Through the small viewing port, they could see the horizon beginning to move away, following the emergency protocols Lisa had established. Now what? Lisa asked, turning to Alan. He was already examining a nearby control panel. We need to get to the auxiliary control room. From there, we can pilot what's left of this ship once the self-destruct sequence is complete. Is that even possible? Lisa demanded. The Kryvan build their ships with redundant systems, Sam explained. The self-destruct is designed to prevent capture of the bridge and weapon systems, but the basic life support and engines can be controlled from multiple locations. They fought their way through buckling corridors and past panicked Kryvan crew, members who were too focused on their own survival to challenge the humans. When they reached the auxiliary control room, Sam immediately began working on the systems. 2 minutes until self-destruct. The room shook as more explosions tore through the ship. On the monitoring screens, they could see sections of the vessel breaking apart, venting atmosphere and debris into space. I've got basic control, Sam announced. Life support is stable in this section. Engine control is responding. The horizon was visible on one of the external cameras, maintaining a safe distance from the self-destructing Kryvan ship. Contact them, Lisa ordered. Let them know we're alive. Paul managed to establish a communication link. Diane's face appeared. On the screen, relief washing over her features when she saw them. Captain, we thought you were lost. We're alive, Lisa confirmed. In the auxiliary control room, the entire ship isn't going to blow, just the bridge and weapons sections. 1 minute until self-destruct. The final minute of the countdown stretched endlessly. The 4 humans huddled in the auxiliary control room, feeling each explosion as it rippled through the dying ship. The lights flickered, failed, and then emergency systems engaged, bathing them in dim blue light. When the final explosion came, it was almost anticlimactic. A distant rumble, a violent shudder throughout the ship, and then silence. The automated countdown voice was gone. Did we survive? Paul asked, breaking the quiet. Sam checked the systems. We did. The bridge is gone, along with about 30% of the ship's total mass. But the engines, life support, and this control center are intact. What about the Kryvan crew? Lisa asked. Alan checked the ship's internal sensors. Life signs in several compartments. Most are in their medical bay. With the bridge destroyed and the commander dead, they have no leadership. And we have control of their engines, Sam added. Lisa stared at the status displays, trying to process what had happened. So we actually did it. We've captured a Kryvan warship. What's left of one, Alan said. But yes, the primary systems are intact, including the faster-than-light drive. With some repairs, this ship could travel anywhere in the sector. The next hours were a blur of activity. The Horizon docked with the remaining sections of the Kryvan vessel. The refugees were transferred over in groups, marveling at the alien technology and the greater space available. The wounded Kryvan were contained in their medical bay, under guard but treated humanely. Teams of engineers and scientists began the process of understanding and repairing the captured ship. Systems were brought online one by one. The remaining weapons were secured and studied. Sam worked with Dr. Ellis to master the navigation controls. 3 days after the battle, Lisa called a meeting of all the refugees in what had once been the Kryvan mess hall. Nearly 300 people crowded into the space, their faces showing a mixture of exhaustion, fear, and hope. "We've come through the impossible," Lisa began. "We've survived the fall of our colony. We've transformed a science vessel into a ship that could fight back. And now we've captured an enemy vessel that gives us new options." She looked out at the faces before her. Scientists, engineers, teachers, children, people who had lost everything but each other. "We have a decision to make," she continued. "We could continue running, find a remote colony, and try to rebuild our lives, or we could do something else." She turned to Alan, standing beside her. "Engineer Carter has a proposal." Alan stepped forward. "This ship has given us power we never thought possible. With it, we could help other colonies that are facing Kryvan attacks. We could rescue more refugees. We could gather intelligence on Kryvan movements and warn potential targets." A murmur ran through the crowd. The idea was bold, perhaps reckless, but after what they had accomplished, the impossible seemed within reach. "I'm not suggesting we become a military vessel," Alan clarified. "We're not soldiers, but we are survivors who have gained unique knowledge. This ship, transformed from a Kryvan cruiser into something new, could make a difference." The debate lasted for hours. Some argued for safety, for finding a quiet place, to rebuild. Others were drawn to Alan's vision of helping others escape the fate that had befallen Outpost Delta. In the end, they reached a consensus. They would not merely flee. They would use their transformed ship to rescue others, to gather information, to give hope to those facing the Kryvan advance. 1 week after capturing the Kryvan vessel, the newly named Phoenix left the battle site. Its hull still bore the scars of conflict, but its systems were operational. Inside, humans worked at consoles once designed for alien hands. Children played in corridors that had carried enemy soldiers. On the bridge, a new command center built. In the auxiliary control room, Lisa sat in the captain's chair,